Yes, so welcome to this half of class. We're going to be, just wanted to explore this more beautiful figure on the shrine here, Akshobhya. So Akshobhya means unshakable or unperturbable, and that's what it means. And as you can see here, it's a lovely colour blue. So I'm just sort of going to try and show you a bit of this figure. What the figure is really about is it's trying to show us, communicate aspects of the Buddha, so like qualities of the Buddha's mind, trying to show us through art, through symbolism, aspects of the Buddha's mind. When you meditate on the Buddha, over the centuries, when people have meditated on the Buddha, images have come to people's minds of qualities of the Buddha. And this is one image that's come through to people's minds. And very expertly painted here, very beautiful blue, isn't it? If you just look at the painting. It's quite striking blue. And you can see there's some symbols on the painting. What I'm going to do in the talk is just explain talk about mainly one symbol from the painting and try and explain how that's relevant for our lives. So that's the idea. Hi, come on in. Yeah, so the first thing to note, just to sort of point out a few things, is you can see that one of his hands is touching the ground, on the right hand side is touching the earth, so that's something to note out there. And there's a symbol of the Vajra there, that's called a Vajra, that symbol there. And there's also, can you see the shapes of two animals? And so those animals are elephants, so that's interesting. And most of all, you can see that the sort of you see that quality of unshakableness, can't you? Sort of depicted in the painting. And what you notice mostly though is the colour. So the colour is a deep dark blue, and it's a blue meant to represent a blue like a lake, like a deep large lake. And of course, the quality of the lake is a very still lake. I'm thinking about it. The quality of the lake is it acts like a mirror, doesn't it? So still that acts like a mirror. And the main quality of Akshobhya is his mirror-like wisdom. So what that means is it's wisdom that just sees reality without tarnishing it, without adding a subjective to reality. It just sees reality as it is. And that's the quality that I'm going to be talking about mostly in the talk. So I'm going to sit down and do that. So good, yeah. So I'm going to be talking. I'm going to be covering three areas. The first one is what is this wisdom? So I'm talking about what is that wisdom. Then I'm going to be talking about why is that important for us? What's that got to do with us in a way, and that wisdom. And then finally, how do we get that wisdom? That's the main thing. So So the first question is, what is this wisdom that's the mirror-like wisdom? What is this wisdom that he's seeing, that he's sort of reflecting back? You see what I mean? Yeah, he's seeing. I don't really know. It's going to be a short talk. In a sense, I don't really know, because it's a wisdom that comes out of an enlightened mind, a mind that's sort of said to have gone beyond ego clinging, so gone beyond a sort of a delusion that causes a lot of suffering in life. So I don't really know fully, but I do sort of have some intuition or some glimpses of that wisdom that I wanted to sort of try and share with us tonight. So the main thing that I think the wisdom is trying to communicate is that, and it comes from a line in the Dhammapada, which is words from the Buddha, is that our experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. So that's, and it goes on, it does go on, but that's the main thing, is that actually our experience of life is always filtered through our mind. However, it's very wired into us to think that what we're seeing, what we're sensing, is the objective world out there, and we're sort of in here. And and all we need to do to be happy is to sort of either get more of the world to sort of make us comfortable and safe. So get more money, get more things, get more cars, get more relationships or whatever it is. Get more. We just want more to sort of, make us sort of feel whole. Or the opposite, which is we don't want, like people that are annoying around us or enemies or things like that. So we think that if we get something from outside of us, that will shore us up, that will make us happy. And of course, there is a correlation between, of course, the outside world and the inside world. Of course, there is. It does. I've just got a new computer that has made me a little bit happy. Sort of playing with that, for example. But the point is, it's not as linear. It's not as linear as we think it is. In a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to get bored of that computer, and it's not really going to make me happy. In fact, it's just going to make me anxious. And in some sort of senses, having to sort of look after the computer. I'm quite neurotic in some ways. So that's the sort of, in a sense, we're hardwired to be like that, because obviously it helps our survival to, that's how we've sort of evolved. To sort of be like that. But of course, the Buddha would say that's a delusion. It's actually stopping us from seeing the full potential of the mind, of the world, of how life really is. And actually is the cause of our suffering. And what it does actually, that objective subjectiveness, what that does is it just makes you always refer back to me. So everything's always, what am I going to get out of this? Why is it happening to me? And what do other people think of me? As Subhajamati said the other night. So that's what it does, and that also causes suffering. Yes, and I don't know if you you've had a sort of glimpse of that. In a sense, we can get a glimpse of this. I like to sort of talk about a glimpse of the mirror. In a sense, we can have look into the mirror. When you meditated tonight, for example, I don't know if you sort of what happened to me anyway is that I started having distractions, sort of ruminations happening in my mind. That happened to you as well, or I've got a few nods. Okay, so that sort of thing, that you get these ruminations, and if you look at them carefully, usually if you look at them carefully, they're always about you or about me. You see what I mean? So the ruminations always come back to me. So it's like, what can I get? What can I get? The fantasy, the planning, or what can I push away? Why have I got this pain? So it always comes back to you, and that the Buddha would say that's not really how things are, and that's causing our suffering. Yes, and I got a sense of this. I got a sense of this when I was growing up. I don't know if you had a similar sort of sense that. What the world was saying and what I sort of thought was that in order to relax or be happy, I had to get things, I had to, do things. For example, a big thing for me was I was quite stressed at school, and what I needed to do to relax was to go on holiday. So that's where I relaxed, on holiday, basically. So obviously there's nothing wrong with going on holiday. That's fine. You can have a nice holiday. That's fine. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I thought that you had to go to relax. You had to go on holiday, and you had to find a nice hotel. You had to find a nice place. You had to have all these things in place so you can relax, if you see what I mean. And then what I noticed was what happens is you book the holiday, and then you get to the airport, and suddenly you're in these long queues. You have to go through security. You take your trousers fall down at security, with your belts off, and you're having to put your shoes on. It's very you have to go through these scanners, and then you're cramped onto an aeroplane. And if you're on Ryanair, you paid for your ticket and then paid for your seat and then probably paid for the toilet. And then finally, it's okay because you're going to be on holiday and it's going to be fine and you're going to get on the beach and don't worry, you're going to relax. But of course, then you get there and it's boiling hot, even though you want it to be hot. Turn on the air conditioning, straight away. And this is I'm just describing my holiday, maybe your holidays. I'm not as neurotic as these, but boiling hot, and then okay, don't worry because the beach is outside, so I'll go to the beach, And then, of course, you get onto get onto the beach, and the sand's boiling hot, and you've got your food, and you get sand in your watermelon, and there's a fly lands on you, and you just think, this is not relaxing. And I sort of and then at school, and sort of compared with that at school, we were quite fortunate. We'd had our teacher used to teach us meditation, and so we just at lunchtime I used to sit down on my own. So hadn't paid any money for this compared to a holiday. Sit down, close my eyes, look at my mind, concentrate on my breathing, and suddenly I'd feel relaxed, and the whole world will just sort of make more sense, and that sort of that anxiety would sort of dissipate a bit, and and that was quite a revelation to me, actually, that I didn't need. It's like, wow, I've sort of seen into something here. I didn't need just to pay £1,000 to go on holiday. I mean, it's fine. I'll say it's fine to go on holiday, but I didn't need that anyway. And that same sort of sense that I didn't need all those things that I thought I needed started growing. So, sort of, choosing nice restaurants, didn't need that really. It's just food, or the nice car, didn't necessarily need that. Even though nice cars are nice, but it's sort of it's that sense you don't. It's not what's it really do. What happened is I sort of started to get a more taste of reality. So on those sorts of holidays, I sort of was in sort of real sense of how I was actually feeling on the holiday, or how it actually felt to have a new car or something like that. And it didn't live up to the promises that the advertising said it would, basically, and that even I thought it would. The fantasy of it, and of course, what this subjective thing does is it adds this filter to our mind. So everything we see comes through this filter, this sort of ego filter, and when we're in a sort of craving mood, we end up seeing things. We end up putting more. We oversee the positive. So, if you sort of, if I have that chocolate, that'll be brilliant. That'll be everything I need. We oversee the positive. And likewise, when we're sort of in aversion or sort of negative mental states, we oversee the negative, don't we? So, if only that person wasn't living with me, then it'd be fine. That's no real people. Or if only if only that person at work would do this, then it'd be fine. So we oversee the negative or the positive through this filter in our mind. And what Akshobhya, this mirror-like wisdom, takes that away, takes that filter away. So you're only seeing reality, you're only seeing the objective, how things really are. So it's not affected by, you're only seeing how things really are. If you see what I mean. So there isn't that subjective thing that we put onto it. Of course, sometimes, you might get a sense of that in meditation, that as I say, that the reality is not exactly how you thought it was, or that you can work with your mind, you can your experience comes from your mind. You may get that sense yourself. Friends are also good at showing you yourself as well. Having friends shows you that you're not exactly how you thought you are. You're not exactly the centre of the world. Things like that. So that's why friends are good to have around. With that. And that wisdom's really helped me to grow and develop and actually make. When I first came along to the Buddhist Centre, I was a very anxious person, and I'll say meditation helped. But I needed that sort of that wisdom of how things are to feel, to sort of really deal with it, actually, to grow, to be able to hold any sort of experience that comes up in that same imperturbable way that Akshobhya represents. That sort of, that's why it's really attractive. That was really attractive to me coming to the Buddhist Centre, sort of sense of being imperturbable, being able to hold any experience, bad or good. And of course, when that happens, you're just sort of more relaxed, but you're also more friendly, more kind, more able to sort of be with other people. So, it was very, that sort of wisdom was attractive to me. And I say I had this sense that of the way to get contentment or something. Yeah, so that's sort of what wisdom is. But I guess the question is, like, why do we want it? Why do we need it? Why is that important? It's a bit like, in the Matrix when you get that there's sort of the metaphor of being offered either the red pill or the blue pill, and the red pill, of course, gives you that insight into how things really are, and the blue pill you can just take that and you can just go back to sleep and sort of live your sort of normal life. And of course, the protagonist in the film The Matrix takes the red pill, and then sort of sees this world. There's a lot more guns and sort of slow-mo action scenes in that film than I've noticed. But still, it's sort of the same idea. Sort of once I'd seen in meditation that I could work with my mind, I was responsible for my own mental states, and things weren't as they seem. Once I'd seen that, I couldn't go back. I mean, I did try. I was sort of trying to have a more conventional life at one point, but I just kept thinking, why am I doing this? And that's a good point, isn't it? Because we put a lot of effort into, I don't know, making money, for example. As Don used to say, I work in medicine, and there's a lot of, sort of strong, driven career doctors, for example, that sort of put a lot of time into the profession, which is a good thing in a sense, but in another sense, they're doing it because they're trying to get something that I don't think they'll ever get, which is satisfaction in the sense that I understand it. And sort of you can sort of apply that to lots of different things, can't you? People, just trying to, I don't know, put effort into something that's not really going to give you contentment. In a sense, that's a shame. It's just a shame, really. And you see that a lot of people sort of working very hard and getting stressed, in a sense, for no reason. So, yes, that's a shame in that sense. Yes. The effort's wasted. And of course, even Buddhism can be like that. So you can even be practicing Buddhism, and if you're not careful, that ego filter, so seeing the world through your own ego, even comes in there. So sort of actually starting to practice, we're starting to practice with good intentions and becoming more mindful, more metaphor. That's great, but really somewhere you just sort of, you just want to get sort of a bit of pleasure really in meditation, or you want you sort of, I don't know, using it to, I don't know, be more efficient at work, for example, or those sorts of things. And that's fine. That's great if you can do that. But what I'm saying is, it's a shame because Buddhism's so much more than that. So that's great if you can be more mindful and more metaphor, and the world needs that. So I'm not putting that down or anything, but I'm just saying, and there's more. So you can be mindful and metaphor, but you can also, if you can see this wisdom, if you can see how things really are, then that's going to inform your life more and make you make better decisions in life, and give you that sort of sense of contentment in a real way. And also, actually, what it does, the more you reflect on the wisdom, is it gives you that impetus, that unshakableness to deal with life. And sadly, this year my dad died, and in January, and it was sort of, he was not well, but it was unexpected, and it was just the fact that I had the Dharma, the sort of these teachings, this perspective, really did help to put it into perspective somehow. Obviously, it was very sad. It was a very sad time, and a sort of poignant time. But I was really in a sense, grateful that I had been shown this perspective on life, and it was very helpful for me and also for the family, and sort of was able to sort of lead things, do talks at the funeral and things like that. So I was very grateful that I don't know, that this perspective, I had this perspective in mind, that life, I don't know, life isn't exactly how it seems, if you see what I mean. Because of course, part of the wisdom is that everything's impermanent, and everything's impermanent. So that was sort of, it's good to reflect on that. And the thing is, what happens once you become more reflective and you get this, and you sort of more in touch with this wisdom, is that you feel more free. So the problem with having this ego is that you're quite tight and worry, sort of you have a propensity to worry and sadness and sort of you get that sort of tightness. When you're free from that, you just you just feel free, and you've got more energy. Energy is released when you're not sort of always worrying about yourself. Energy is released, and you're just more metaphor. And that's what the Vajra represents. So the Vajra on this painting represents that sort of release of energy. So that's important to remember, that you will get more energy the more you meditate, the more you can reflect on wisdom. Of course, looking at wisdom means that sometimes it's not pleasurable. Actually, sometimes difficult things do come up. For me, for example, at first it did sort of help with anxiety sort of feelings. Actually, sort of mindfulness and metta was really important. I definitely became more in touch with my emotions, which I was avoiding for a lot of my childhood, going to an all-boys school and sort of being put through the A-level system and everything. It sort of, I wasn't in touch with my emotions, and that sort of meant that I was more anxious, basically, because I didn't know how to deal with emotions or feelings. And as soon as I came across Buddhism and mindfulness and metta, I was more able to do that, to be with my emotions, to be happy, to be emotionally strong, to be mindful. But also then sort of starting to reflect on life, on impermanence, things like that, did bring up some uncomfortable feelings, or still does in a sense. And but even though it's uncomfortable, it helps me grow, and it helps me to, it just feels more real doing that. And that's what I'm interested in. That's what I want to do. And I think it's important to bring all sides of us on. So, if you just because it gets difficult doesn't mean it's not fruitful. So so that's important to remember. For me. Sometimes it has been difficult making decisions, but I've always grown. Each time I've had to make a difficult decision, like Tony said, like moving into a spiritual community, for example, that was quite a big decision, because I had to, at the time, give up a relationship. So it was quite a sad time in a way, but I just knew I wanted to do that, and so it was difficult. And obviously, sort of moving into a community is difficult in some sense, because it's not the sort of conventional life. But that was actually the best decision I've ever made, which I mean, because I've got the most incredible friends that I can really talk to, and sort of be with, and they understand me, I understand them. It's very, very loving atmosphere, very, very kind, loving atmosphere. The kindest men I've ever met, actually. So really pleased I've done that. And that's the great thing about it. When you meditate, when you've taken the red pill, so to speak, when you've and when you find other people that have also taken it, that's where it comes alive for me. It's just like very, very refreshing, because you sort of you're with people that also understand where you're coming from, and even though they understand where you're coming from, and the conversations just are more sort of feel more real. At least they're more honest anyway, and so you can talk about things in a sort of in a better way. And that's why, I don't know if you've experienced that, just coming here and being friends with people around the centre. And it's different from when I go back. Sometimes I go and meet my old friends from home, or my medical student friends, and the conversation is different, you see what I mean? And it's a bit harder sometimes to engage, because it's a lot of it like, where are you going on holiday next? Where's the next restaurant? If you're going back to holidays, and sort of, or where are you getting married? That sort of conversation at the moment for my age, and it's it's obviously that's fine, and I can engage, be friendly and be nice to people, but it's not as interesting, as exciting as sort of being around people that are sort of thinking about the mind and consciousness and Dharma and, sort of, I don't know, reality. That's what excites me. So that's what happens it's another good reason to do it, to reflect on wisdom, because you sort of start to connect with other people that are doing it as well, and that helps you grow. Because basically the happiness that you get from material things is just too thin, really. It can't hold reality. It can't hold. I mean, if I go back, my dad's situation as well, and this year, I mean, you really saw that people that, my family, I really respect them. I've got a very loving family actually, but it's very interesting to see adults that you sort of, respected growing up, sort of deal with reality, and a lot of, of course, everyone, it's understandable, but they were very upset, and they were, but often dealing with it in, I thought, not helpful ways, sort of very avoidant of what had just happened. And I was sort of, again, I said, very grateful that I could deal with it in some sort of way, not perfectly, but at least I had some sort of perspective. Yeah, so it was too thin. Okay, so that is the wisdom, as I said. So the wisdom is, the mirror-like wisdom is getting the perspective that all our experiences do come through our mind, that our experience is mind-made, not the other way around. So it's not the other way around. Yeah, does that make sense? So it's not like, it's complicated, isn't it? Not the other way around. And you want to do it because it's good to reflect on it, because you need, otherwise you're going to put effort in your life in the wrong direction to be contentment. So that's why you really need to know. You need to know what is life really about. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting your effort, and you're not going to be in touch with this freedom and ultimately the metta, the connection that comes with being free from ego clinging. Yeah. So that's a shame. That's what I'm saying. So, yeah. So then the final question is, how do you get it? How do you get this wisdom then? Well, that's interesting, isn't it? I think we can look back to Akshobhya for help with this one. So you can see, as I said at the beginning, you can see his right hand is touching the earth, and what that represents is it's a moment from the Buddha's life story. It's a moment actually representing a moment just before he got enlightened. So just before he saw this reality exactly how it is, just before he saw that, it's a moment before that. And he had vowed to sit under a Bodhi tree, a tree in India. He had vowed to sit there until he realised reality, until he got enlightened. And what happened when he did that? He sat in meditation. What happened when he did that? It was basically had lots of resistances come up in the form of, it's mythologized in the form of Mara. So a demon came to him and tried to stop him meditating, basically. What happened was he had craving come up and aversion, hatred, but he managed to defeat the forces of Mara and just carry on meditating. But finally, Mara came to him and said, "What right do you have to sit there and meditate and think that you can get enlightened? What right do you have to do that? Why do you think you can do that?" Don't know if you recognise that voice, but that sort of, do I think that I'm good enough to do this? I can't meditate. That sort of voice, that sort of critical, doubting voice. Is this any good? Is this doing me any good sitting here and meditating? Is this doing me any good looking in the mirror of my mind? That sort of narrative can go on. It can often underlie lots of ruminations, actually, that sort of narrative. So do watch out for that. But the Buddha, what the Buddha did was he just instinctively touched the earth, and that's what that represented. And it said that the earth goddess came up and said to him, "Yeah, of course you have a right, because you've been practicing for so long," and she says even over many lifetimes, because you've been practicing for so long and because you've been very ethical and determined, you can do it. You do have a right to get enlightened. And then he was enlightened. So what that sort of represents as well is that, of course, the earth represents sort of nature, the naturalness of enlightenment of the mind, and a source of faith, the faith that you can do it, you can meditate, and it's going to have an effect. And I think that's very important, and I think that's the first step if we are going to try and understand our mind more and get this wisdom. The first step is we need to have confidence, belief that it is going to actually, meditation, practice, coming to the Buddha Center is actually going to help, and it is going to actually help us see reality. You need to believe in that. And of course, you can get You get that you can do that in three ways. The first way is in yourself. It's very important. So you meditate and you realise that life, as I said, life isn't quite as you seem, and the mind's doing wonderful things, and you try and sort of work out yourself what you need to do, and you do need to believe it yourself. No one can tell you that this is the path or not. You need to know it yourself. And the Buddha even said that. He said, look, this is my teachings. Try it out in your own experience. If you want to follow it, that's great. If not, that's fine. You do need to sort of keep do that. Keep coming back, keep meditating, keep going on retreat, and sort of trying to figure that out yourself. Ask yourself the question, does this work? Am I calmer? Am I more merciful? Am I able to sort of look at reality more deeper? Yeah, so that's important. And you need a sort of to do that, I think you need a sort of will or strength or stamina, which is in a sense, what the elephants represent. So the elephants represent, can you see sitting on the elephant, they represent the animal of sort of strength, of stamina. They're also very kind animals, and they grieve when their relatives die, and they're very sort of gentle, kind animals, which is interesting. But they represent the strength, and even in the Buddha's time, actually, they still represented that. There's a line in the Dhammapada which is quotes from the Buddha that says, "Find joy in watchfulness, guard well your mind, uplift yourself from your lower self, even as an elephant draws himself out of a muddy swamp." So that image of, you've seen that on YouTube, that image of sort of an elephant coming out of the swamp? Just me. But have a look. There is lots of elephants are very strong coming out of a muddy swamp. There's that strength of an elephant coming out of the swamp. So that's what it's trying to do. We do need that. Often you can think of sometimes you can think of Buddhism as sort of it's a path where you can relax and just sort of take it easy, and you do feel you can relax, and that's important. But also you do need strength and stamina and the sort of discipline to keep meditating even when it gets difficult. And I've sort of been trying to do that over the years, and to varying levels of success. So that is important, yeah. So you need your own faith, but it's really hard to do on your own, basically, because as I say, it does take a lot of strength and stamina, and often faith is faith in other people's faith. So I definitely felt that coming here to the Buddhist Centre, sort of very, very grateful to come to the Buddhist Centre, meeting people like Subhadramati, Jana Varcha at the time, and Maitri Bandhu, and Parambandhu, for example. They just had incredible amounts of faith in that this works, and they've been practicing for so long. And they seem to just be very together. They seem to be quite unshakable. Very, very kind, mindful. They just seem. I just sort of thought, yes, this does work. I can see it in them. There's something special about them, and that was very attractive. And it sort of did inspire me to come. And I think, and obviously, we all have to have our own sort of faith in that. We can't. You have to sort of decide yourself who to trust and who you're going to have faith in. If you sort of mean, I can't tell you that, but. I definitely had that sense of faith in those people, and also in Sangharakshita as well. Sangharakshita is the founder of this movement, this centre. You can just tell by looking at his whole life story, his stamina, his commitment to the Dharma. From the age of 16, for example, he knew he was a Buddhist, and he was a monk for 20 years in India. And if you read his life story, you can see that he's not only a very kind man who sort of was helping children, men and women in India, and also teaching the Dharma, but he was also very, very committed, very, very disciplined to meditate. He really believed in it, basically. He believed that it worked, and that was shown in his actions. It's very easy to say, talking about myself, it's very easy to say I believe in it. Then I need to look at my actions in the week. Have I, how long have I meditated for? How long, how do I really believe that it does work? Because sometimes I don't, but someone like Sangharakshita, he does really believe in it. And if you look at his whole life, he has, really, not only has he believed in it, but he's tried to help other people, and that's why he set up this order to try and help us, and that's why we're here today, because he knew that there's something in the Dharma, and he was trying to help. yeah, it's very, very impressive. And you can look even like, he's the founder of a whole movement, a massive international movement, but for example, he lives in a modest housing, he's 91, lives in modest housing with very few possessions. So again, that sort of inspires me that, you can be content just from the Dharma. He's got his hobbies. He loves writing and poetry and meeting people, of course. But you can see he's just content from the Dharma, not from material wealth and things like that. So again, that inspires me that it does work. You see what I mean? So you need faith in yourself. You need friends as well who you can look up to. It's actually very it's such a relief to have people that you can look up to, that are sort of a bit more along the line than you, and sort of you can learn from. What a relief that is, because often we don't have that in life, or it's very difficult to trust people, because over the years people have abused their abused their positions of power and things like that. So it is difficult to trust people. But you sort of have to get to know people. Like with Sangharakshita, for example, you have to read all his life stories and to see if you can trust him or not, and read all his books, and I think then make a decision on him, for example. But for me, I have trusted him, and I do sort of really believe in that. So yeah, friends, not just so you can look up and have friends, but friends in the Sangha as well. You're like me and Danutar, for example. We, as she said, we grew up together, and that's really important because we can sort of, it's very impressive how much Danutar has come on actually, and her confidence has grown in that time. And it's lovely to see that and sort of reflect that back to each other. And so it's a delight to have friends around here. And and in a sense, you need a context to hold that. So of course we've got, for me, it's the centre, and actually to help with the commitment, to help with that discipline. We do have structures in place to help support your commitment. So you can come to the centre and commit however much or little as you want. You can just come to the classes, and that's great. You go on retreat and you can commit in that way, you commit to your practice in that way. But also, if you do want to, you can become an official friend of the centre called a mitra, which involves a ceremony. And then eventually, if you really feel like you are committed, you can join the order, which I did, and I was really loved doing that, because what that meant was it's being able to be with people that were also looking for this wisdom, who were also genuinely wanting to put that search in the centre of their lives. And that's been the best decision I've ever made in my life. Actually, it's been very, very supportive for my own practice and just for life. So that's what the order can offer you. That that sort of support for your commitment to finding the truth, finding the answer to life. Of course, then there are other orders are available, but you have to, whichever one you find, whichever one works for you, just stick to that one, because you need that depth, you need that commitment to get anywhere in whichever one you do pick, or not. So finally, so the last thing you need to do if you want to get the wisdom, so you need your own faith, you need faith from your friends, and be able to look up to people that you trust and respect. But you also need akshobhya. So you need the Buddha, you need akshobhya, you need in your imagination, you need and you need something to put your imagination, your aim, your goal onto. You need an image that's strong enough to hold your imagination, because your spiritual friends are great, your teachers are great, and they're very important, and they're probably very inspiring people, but they are just people. People make mistakes, people are infallible, and creating a whole order, you're bound to make mistakes. You can't not make mistakes. Making a whole order, how can you not? It's such a big task. But what's important to remember is that you need to be able to respect people. You need something higher than those people to respect, and those people that you respect are the doorway to those higher images. So Sangharakshita, for example, he's my teacher, but he's opened the doorway for me to be able to imagine the Buddha, imagine akshobhya, and that's given me everything really. That's given me a way to focus my energies. That's given me an aim, a goal, a sort of, the symbol of what enlightenment is. Because we need to, it's not just about the rational, it's about being able to really connect with our deepest desires, deepest meaningful desires, which symbols can sort of bring out of us. So you sort of need to have that image in your mind, and then you can appreciate more that, like, for example, Sangharakshita has opened the door to that image for me. So I'm not sort of going to refuge, I'm not sort of, call it going for refuge, as in like putting it in the centre of my life. I'm not putting Sangharakshita, my teacher, or my other teachers at the centre of my life, so to speak. I very much respect them and I'm grateful for them, but I'm not putting them. Instead, I'm putting this image, the Buddha, which is a sort of perfect image, at the centre of my life, if you sort of mean. And that can only make me grow, because what your mind dwells on, you become. So thanks very much.